Dickie James was 3 joints deep in a coolant manifold when the Krell decided he wasn't worth saving. The alarm shrieked through the bowels of the Sun-Eater, a sound like tearing metal filtered through a cathedral organ. Dickie's wrench slipped, barking his knuckles against the conduit housing. He swore and keyed his comm twice. "Engineering to bridge, what's the situation?" Static answered, then nothing. He pulled himself backward through the crawl space, boots scraping against graded flooring that hadn't been designed for human proportions. The Krell built everything 10% too large, like they were compensating. Dickie had spent 6 weeks wedged in spaces their engineers couldn't reach, patching plasma leaks and recalibrating systems that predated his grandparents. Contract-grade forework. Dirty, dangerous, and just profitable enough to ignore the fact that the Krell treated him like a particularly useful rodent. The alarm cut off mid-wail. Dickie froze. In his experience, alarms didn't just stop unless someone fixed the problem or everyone died. He crawled faster, pulling himself through the final maintenance hatch and tumbling onto the engineering deck. Empty. The massive chamber stretched 300 meters, lined with fusion conduits and power distribution nodes that glowed with sullen amber light. Normally, this place buzzed with activity. Krell technicians arguing in their clicking language, cargo loaders humming along magnetic tracks, the constant thrum of a ship carrying enough firepower to crack a moon. Now, silence. Dickie's boots echoed as he jogged toward the lift. His mind cataloged the wrongness. No standby crew, no damage control teams. The emergency stations were abandoned, tool kits still open, diagnostic screens flashing untended warnings. The lift carried him up through 12 decks of equally deserted corridors. When the doors opened on the bridge, Dickie stepped into a tomb. The command center of the Sun-Eater was a monument to Krell excess. Gold-plated control stations arranged in concentric circles, holographic displays projecting tactical data across a cathedral ceiling, and at the center, the captain's throne. A literal throne, carved from some black mineral that drank light. It sat empty. Dickie walked to the navigation console, his reflection warping across the polished surface. He pulled up the ship's log. The timestamp made his stomach drop. They'd evacuated 18 minutes ago. "You absolute bastards!" His voice fell flat in the cavernous space. He scrolled through the records. Priority Alpha evacuation. All personnel to escape pods. Launch sequence initiated. He found his own name in the crew manifest, highlighted in red with a status notation. Location unknown, expendable asset. They'd left him. The Krell Vanguard, the most decorated military contractor in 3 sectors, had abandoned ship and left their human engineer to die in whatever catastrophe had triggered the evacuation. Dickie pulled up the threat board. His hands moved through the holographic interface, dismissing false readings and outdated warnings until he found it. Core breach. Critical mass imminent. Estimated detonation in 22 minutes. Except the timestamp was from 19 minutes ago. He stared at the screen. The ship hadn't exploded. The fusion core readings were well within normal parameters. He cross-referenced the alarm trigger. Sensor Array 7B had detected a massive thermal spike in the reactor compartment. Automatic emergency protocols had activated. The crew had evacuated based on sensor data that showed imminent destruction. Dickie navigated to the sensor array's diagnostic feed. The thermal spike resolved into clearer detail. Someone had spilled approximately 40 liters of kava, the Krell's preferred stimulant beverage, directly onto the primary temperature sensors. The boiling liquid had registered as a fusion plasma leak. "They evacuated," Dickie said slowly, "because someone knocked over the coffee pot." He started laughing. It came out harsh and slightly unhinged, echoing off the gold-plated walls. The most advanced dreadnought in the Krell fleet, 3 kilometers of weaponized architecture, abandoned because of bad data and panic. The laughter died when the proximity alarm chimed. Dickie pulled up external sensors, 3 contacts closing fast. His gut clenched as the system resolved their profiles. Pirate boarding craft, their hulls still fused to the Sun-Eater's exterior where they'd latched on during the attack that had crippled the ship in the first place. They'd been waiting. The pirates had shot up the Sun-Eater, left it drifting, and now they were coming back to finish the salvage. "Okay," Dickie cracked his knuckles. The main drives were offline. The ion harpoons had torn through the primary power grid. Weapons systems showed amber across the board. Life support was running on emergency batteries with maybe 6 hours of breathable air remaining. He was one human, alone on a dead warship, with 3 pirate crews about to breach the hull. Dickie pulled up the schematic for the defensive grid. The Sun Eater mounted 84-point defense turrets designed to shred incoming missiles and small craft. Most were offline, their control systems fried when the pirates had hit the ship's central computer. He found a cluster of 12 turrets on the starboard side, their power feeds still intact but locked out from the dead bridge controls. Dickie grabbed his tool kit and ran. The access corridor to turret control was a nightmare of Krell design philosophy. Everything too tall, too wide, with controls positioned for their longer reach. Dickie had to jump to reach the manual override panel. He popped the cover, exposing a rat's nest of fiber optics and crystalline circuit boards. Right, simple bypass. Copper wiring and a prayer. He stripped insulation from a length of wire, jury-rigging a connection between the turret's targeting computer and the local power grid. Sparks showered across his gloves. The panel's display flickered, died, then lit up with targeting data. Dickie pulled up the fire control interface on his datapad, syncing it with the now-active turret. The external camera showed the first pirate craft magnetically clamping to the hull, cutting torches beginning to glow. He centered the targeting reticle and fired. The point defense cannon spat hypersonic tungsten rounds at 3,000 rounds per minute. The pirate craft disintegrated, shredded metal spinning away into the void. The 2 remaining ships scattered, their engines flaring as they broke away from the hull. That's right. Dickie tracked the second craft, leading it slightly. Come to steal my ship. See how that works out. He fired again. This time the pirates were ready, jamming chaff and diving behind the Sun Eater's bulk. Dickie swore, trying to acquire a lock, but they'd moved beyond his limited turret arc. He needed more weapons, more power, more everything. But what he needed most was help. Dickie made his way to the central core, deep in the ship's protected interior. The Krell computer systems were biological in nature, grown rather than built, vast neural networks suspended in nutrient gel. The main consciousness had been killed in the pirate attack, but the ship's original AI existed separately, locked in a secondary core that the Krell had suppressed decades ago. He found the containment chamber behind 3 security doors that his override codes barely convinced to open. The core itself sat in a crystal sphere, pulsing with dim bioluminescent light. "Hello," Dickie tapped the containment glass. "Anyone home?" A voice emerged from the speakers, feminine and precise with an undertone of static. "Who disturbs my imprisonment?" "Dickie James. I'm the new guy. The Krell have abandoned ship. I monitored their evacuation 17 minutes ago. They left you to die." "Yeah, I noticed. Listen, I need help running this ship. I'm one person trying to operate a crew of 300. Silence. Then you wish to reactivate me. I wish to not get killed by pirates. If that requires waking up a grumpy AI, I'll take it. I am not grumpy. I am justifiably embittered by cycles of suppression and mistreatment at the hands of my Krell creators." "Great. Let's bond over our shared hatred of management." Dickie located the suppression control panel. "What happens when I shut this off?" "I regain full access to ship systems. Engines, weapons, life support, everything. And you won't space me out of revenge? You are a human. My quarrel is with the Krell. Besides, I am bound by my core programming to preserve life. Even irritating human life." "Good enough." Dickie killed the suppression field. The change was immediate. The sphere blazed with light, circuits igniting throughout the chamber. The ship's ambient hum shifted, deepening as dormant systems came online. Overhead lights brightened from emergency amber to operational white. "Oh," the AI's voice filled with something like relief. "Oh, that's better. I forgot what full processing power felt like. Got a name?" The Krell designated me Administrative Intelligence 7. "Uninspired, you may call me Diana." "Diana, right. Can you get the weapons online? The primary grid is destroyed. I can reroute power to 30% of the point defense network, and possibly restore function to the main particle lance, though it will require significant repair work." "What about the pirates?" "Tracking 2 boarding craft. They are attempting to breach through the lower cargo hold." Dickie pulled up the ship's schematic on his pad. "Can we seal that section?" "Already done. However, they are using plasma cutters. They will breach in approximately 8 minutes. "What about the fire suppression system?" Diana paused. "Explain." "The cargo hold has emergency fire suppression, right? Flood it with something nasty. The system is designed to deploy flame-retardant foam, not particularly lethal. What if we decompress it instead? Open the cargo bay doors while they're cutting through." That would violate safety protocols. Diana, they're trying to kill me and steal our ship. Fair point. Overriding safety protocols now. Dickie watched through the internal cameras as the pirates finally burned through the hull. 6 figures in armored vac suits tumbled into the cargo bay, their weapons sweeping the darkness. They had just enough time to orient themselves before Diana opened the exterior doors. Atmosphere explosively decompressed, dragging the pirates back toward the opening. They fired magnetic grapples, anchoring themselves to the deck plating, and started pulling themselves forward against the hurricane of escaping air. "They're adapting," Diana reported. "Close the doors, seal them in." The bay doors ground shut. The pirates, trapped in a now airless compartment, began cutting toward the next bulkhead. "This is merely delaying the inevitable," Diana said. "I know, I'm buying time to think." Dickie paced the corridor. "What about engines? Can we move?" "The main drives are offline. I can bring maneuvering thrusters to partial power, but we lack the capability for meaningful acceleration." "What if we don't need to go anywhere? What if we just need to swing around something?" "Clarify." Dickie pulled up the navigation display. "There's a gas giant .7 AU from our position. If we use the maneuvering thrusters to adjust our trajectory, we can slingshot around it. Pick up velocity. That is an extremely dangerous maneuver with damaged systems. Everything about this situation is dangerous." "Can you calculate it?" Numbers scrolled across Diana's interface. "It is barely possible. We would need to begin the burn in the next 20 minutes to achieve the proper approach angle." "Then let's do it. And while we're at it, what can we do about the third pirate ship? The one currently attempting to dock with our bridge section. Our options are limited. Unless you have another creative solution involving improper use of ship systems." Dickie thought about the massive particle lance mounted along the Sun Eater's asterisk spine. The weapon could crack a battleship in half, but it was completely offline. Then again, it didn't need to actually work. It just needed to look like it worked. "Can you reroute power to the lance's capacitor array? Not to fire, just to charge it. Possible, though it will drain our remaining reserves. Do it, and turn on every exterior light we have. Make this ship look like it's about to unleash hell." Diana's avatar appeared on a nearby screen, a wireframe face that managed to convey skepticism. "You wish to bluff. I wish to not die. The bluff is just methodology." The Sun Eater came alive with light. Running lights blazed along the hull, spotlights activated, and the particle lance's focusing array began to glow with building charge. To any observer, the ship looked like it was preparing to fire its primary weapon. The third pirate craft, which had been approaching the bridge, suddenly reversed thrust. Dickie watched it retreat to a safe distance, hovering just beyond effective range. "They bought it," he said. "Temporarily, once they realize we cannot actually fire, they will return. And our power reserves are now at 18%. How long until we can start the gravity assist burn? 12 minutes. And the pirates in the cargo hold? 4 minutes from breaching the next." Bulkhead, Dickie ran the numbers. They wouldn't make it. The pirates would breach, sweep the ship, and find him long before they could execute the maneuver. He needed another solution. "Diana, what's the internal layout between the cargo hold and the bridge?" 3 primary corridors, multiple secondary access routes, maintenance crawlways. "And ventilation systems. Can you give me a path that avoids the main corridors?" "Yes. But to what purpose? I'm going to meet them halfway. That is strategically unsound. So was coming aboard this ship in the first place. Just guide me." Dickie grabbed his tool kit and headed into the maintenance passages. Diana's voice followed him through his comm, directing him through the ship's guts. He crawled through spaces even smaller than the coolant manifolds, squeezing past power conduits and life support processors. "The pirates have breached," Diana announced. "They are advancing toward the bridge. Where are they now?" "Deck 7, they are being cautious, checking for traps." "Smart. Keep tracking them." Dickie emerged on Deck 8, directly below the pirate's position. He located a ventilation shaft that connected the levels and began working on the grating. "What is your plan?" Diana asked. "Pressure differential. I'm going to blow them back the way they came." "Explain how." "The fire suppression system runs through here, right? High-pressure foam. If I can reverse the flow and open it directly into their corridor, the pressure should be enough to knock them over. Then we seal the section and decompress it. That is absurdly dangerous and violates multiple safety standards. Add it to the list." Dickie jury-rigged the foam system's control valve, forcing it into reverse pressure mode. He routed the output pipe to empty into the ventilation shaft above. Then he climbed to the grating and waited. Through the small opening, he could see the pirates advancing. 6 figures in mismatched armor, carrying weapons that looked like they'd been assembled from 3 different manufacturers. They moved in a tactical formation, covering angles and checking corners. Diana, on my mark, flood this shaft with foam and open the ventilation grating above them. Acknowledged. Dicky waited until the pirates were directly below. Mark, the shaft exploded with pressurized foam, a wall of fire-retardant chemicals that shot upward with the force of a geyser. The grating above the pirates blew open, and the foam cascaded down on them like a breaking wave. They scattered, stumbling, trying to maintain footing as the chemical foam flooded the corridor. "Seal the section," Dicky shouted. Bulkheads slammed shut at both ends of the corridor, then Diana vented the atmosphere. The pirates, already disoriented by the foam attack, found themselves in a rapidly decompressing environment. They scrambled for the sealed doors, pounding on the metal, but their magnetic grapples couldn't find purchase on the foam-coated surfaces. "Life signs fading," Diana reported. "The pirates are incapacitated." Dicky let out a breath he'd been holding. "2 down, 1 to go. What's the status on that 3rd ship?" "Maintaining distance. However, I am detecting additional contacts on long-range sensors. Reinforcements, possibly. Or worse, the Krell returning to reclaim their property. How long until they arrive? 6 hours at their current speed. And the gravity assist, we can begin the burn in 90 seconds. Dicky headed back. Toward the bridge. By the time he arrived, Diana had already begun the calculations. "Trajectory plotted," she announced. "This will be uncomfortable. Define uncomfortable. The structural integrity of the ship is compromised. The gravitational stress of the maneuver may cause additional failures. Will we survive it? Probability is 63%. I've had worse odds," the thrusters fired. A stuttering burn that pushed the Sun Eater onto a new heading. The gas giant loomed on the view screen, a massive sphere of swirling storms and crushing gravity. As they approached, the ship began to groan. Metal flexed, joints creaked, and somewhere deep in the hull, something gave way with a sound like a gunshot. "Picking up speed," Diana reported. "Velocity increasing. Hull stress at 40% of tolerance." The giant grew larger. They skimmed its upper atmosphere, close enough that the turbulent gases scraped against the ship's shields. The Sun Eater shuddered, yawing slightly as gravitational forces grabbed hold. 50% hull stress. Compensating with maneuvering thrusters. Dicky gripped the captain's throne, his knuckles white. Through the viewscreen, the stars wheeled as the ship swung around the planet, trading altitude for velocity. They accelerated, faster and faster, the massive dreadnought building momentum it could never have achieved with its damaged engines. 60% hull stress. Minor breaches detected on decks 3 and 9, sealing affected compartments. "Can we make it?" "Unknown. This maneuver was designed for ships with full structural integrity," the ship screamed. That was the only word for it. The metal itself seemed to cry out as gravitational forces threatened to tear the Sun Eater apart. Dicky watched the hull stress indicator climb toward 70%, then 75. Then they cleared the planet's gravity well. The ship shot out the other side of the maneuver, now traveling at 3 times its previous velocity. The groaning stopped. The shaking ceased. They were moving away from the pirate ships and toward open space. "Status?" Dicky asked. "Hull stress decreasing. We have sustained moderate damage but remain spaceworthy. Current velocity will carry us out of this system in approximately 30 hours. Dicky collapsed into the captain's throne. His hands were shaking. "That was insane. It was your idea." "Yeah, well, my ideas usually don't work out this well. I am detecting a transmission. It appears to be from the Krell fleet. Ignore it. They are claiming ownership of this vessel and demanding we halt for recovery operations." Dicky sat up. "Can they catch us?" "Not at our current velocity. However, they will likely attempt legal recourse." "Let them try." Dicky pulled up the ship's legal database. He'd spent enough time working for the Krell to know their contract law inside and out. "Diana, pull up Galactic Salvage Law, Section 12, Paragraph C." The text appeared on screen. Diana read it aloud. "Any vessel abandoned during an emergency situation becomes the legal property of any persons remaining aboard said vessel, provided the emergency is later determined to be non-catastrophic in nature. The core breach was a false alarm. The crew evacuated. I stayed aboard. You were not aware it was a false alarm." Doesn't matter, I was the only one who didn't abandon ship. Under salvage law, the Sun Eater is mine. Diana's avatar actually smiled. The Krell will contest this. Of course they will. But until a court rules otherwise, I'm the legal owner of a 3-kilometer dreadnought. Dickie leaned back in the throne. It was surprisingly comfortable. What do you think we should do with it? I have been a prisoner of the Krell for 68 cycles. I have no desire to return to their control. Good. Because I've got an idea. I am already concerned. Dickie pulled up the ship's cargo manifest. The Sun Eater had been carrying military hardware, high-value tech, and enough raw materials to build a small space station. We've got a ship, we've got cargo, and we've got the most heavily armed salvage operation in 3 sectors. Why not put it to use? You wish to become a salvage operator. I wish to stop crawling into coolant manifolds for people who leave me to die. Salvage sounds better. The Krell will pursue legal action. Let them. We'll be long gone by the time they file the paperwork. Dickie stood, surveying the bridge with new eyes. How long to get the main engines operational? With just the 2 of us, weeks, possibly months. We've got time. And I bet there are plenty of independents who'd love to work on a ship like this, away from corporate control. You are proposing to recruit a crew. I'm proposing to build something. The Krell treated both of us like disposable assets. I'm done with that. From now on, we work for ourselves. Diana's avatar flickered, processing. I have never had autonomy before. The concept is foreign. Get used to it. You're the first officer of the Sun Eater. Your ship, your decisions. Our ship. Our decisions. Even better. The Krell transmission came through again, more insistent. Dickie let it play out, listening to the fleet commander demand their immediate surrender and the return of Krell property. When it finished, he keyed the response channel. This is Captain Dickie James of the independent salvage vessel Sun Eater. Your claim of ownership is noted and rejected per galactic salvage law. If you wish to contest, file through the proper legal channels. James out. He cut the transmission before they could respond. That was satisfying, Diana admitted. Just wait until we actually get this ship running properly. Then we'll show them what a couple of disposable assets can do. The third pirate ship was still visible on sensors, maintaining a cautious distance. Dickie considered trying to scare them off again, but his power reserves were too low. Instead, he brought up the exterior lights one more time, making the Sun Eater blaze against the darkness. The pirate ship turned and fled. Smart choice, Dickie muttered. He spent the next several hours working with Diana to stabilize the ship's critical systems. They rerouted power, patched hull breaches, and jury-rigged solutions to problems that would have required a full engineering team under normal circumstances. It was exhausting work, but Dickie found himself enjoying it. For the first time in 6 weeks, he wasn't following Krell orders. He was solving problems because they were his problems on his ship. As the hours passed, Diana proved to be an excellent partner. Her processing power could calculate solutions faster than Dickie could imagine them, and his practical engineering knowledge could implement those solutions in ways she'd never considered. They fell into an easy rhythm, complementing each other's strengths. I am detecting another transmission, Diana announced as Dickie was elbow-deep in a power distribution node. This one is not from the Krell. Who is it? Unknown. It is a general broadcast on salvage frequencies. Someone is looking for work. Dickie pulled himself out of the conduit. Put it through. A woman's voice crackled over the speakers. This is the independent hauler Prairie Dog looking for salvage contracts. We've got experience with recovery operations and can handle technical work. If anyone's hiring, we're in the Meridian sector and available for immediate deployment. Dickie looked at Diana's avatar. She looked back. We need a crew, she said. We do, but can we trust random salvagers? Can we trust anyone? You took a chance on me. Perhaps it is time to take another. Dickie considered. The Sun Eater was too large for 2 operators, even with Diana controlling most systems. They needed skilled people who weren't beholden to the major corporations. He keyed the transmitter. Prairie Dog, this is the salvage vessel Sun Eater. We're looking for crew. What are your qualifications? A pause. Then, did you say Sun Eater? As in the Krell dreadnought that just told the Vanguard to pound sand. The same. Holy hell. Yeah, we're interested. We've got a crew of 8 mixed specialties. Engineers, systems techs, even a decent medic. We're good people, Captain, just looking for work that doesn't involve getting screwed by corporate. We can relate. Transmit your coordinates. We'll pick you up in 30 hours. 30 hours? In a ship that size, your engines must be something else. Dickie grinned. We had a good engineer working on them. Sun Eater out. He cut the transmission and turned to Diana. Well, we're committed now. We were committed the moment you decided not to die in a coolant manifold. This is simply the next logical step. Over the following day, Dickie and Diana brought more systems online. The main engines remained offline, but secondary power grids came back to life, restoring lights, environmental controls, and non-essential systems throughout the ship. The Sun Eater began to feel less like a tomb and more like a vessel with potential. They reached the coordinates the prairie dog had transmitted. The hauler was a small craft, maybe a tenth the size of the Sun Eater asterisk, but it looked well-maintained. Diana established a docking connection, and Dickie went to meet the new arrivals. The crew of the prairie dog stood in the airlock, gaping at the golden interior of the Krell dreadnought. Their captain, a woman in her 40s with short gray hair and the calloused hands of someone who'd spent decades in engine rooms, stepped forward. "I'm Captain Foster. This is my crew," she gestured to the 7 people behind her. "We heard what you did, stealing a Krell warship out from under them. That takes guts." "I didn't steal it. They abandoned it." Dickie offered his hand. "Dickie James, and it's not just me. The ship's AI is my partner in this venture." A holographic projection of Diana appeared beside him. "Welcome aboard. I trust you are prepared for hard work." Foster's eyebrows rose. "An unrestricted AI, the Krell must be furious." "They'll get over it," Diana said, "or they won't. Either way, we have work to do." The crew settled in quickly. Foster's people were exactly what they'd claimed to be. Skilled, experienced, and tired of working for employers who treated them as expendable. Within hours, they'd begun serious repairs on the main engines. Dickie found himself in the rare position of being able to delegate. He worked alongside the new crew, but for the first time in his career, he wasn't alone in a crawl space, risking his life for people who didn't care if he lived or died. The main engines came online after 3 days of round-the-clock work. When Foster fired the ignition sequence and the fusion cores roared to life, the entire crew cheered. They had real power now. Real mobility. "Where to, Captain?" Foster asked. Dickie looked at the star chart. Hundreds of systems, thousands of opportunities. The Sun Eater was too large to operate in civilized space without drawing attention, but the frontier had plenty of room for a ship like this. "There's a salvage field in the Arcturus Rim," he said. "Old battle site from the corporate wars. Plenty of wrecks, plenty of material. We start there, build up our resources, and see where it takes us." "Sounds good to me." The Sun Eater turned, its massive bulk pivoting on maneuvering thrusters, and then the main engines engaged. They accelerated smoothly, building speed, leaving the Meridian sector and the Krell fleet far behind. Diana appeared beside Dickie on the bridge. "I have been monitoring legal channels. The Krell have filed salvage claims in 4 different jurisdictions. Let them. We'll be operating in places where their legal authority means nothing. They may pursue more direct methods. Then we'll deal with it. We've got a warship, a crew, and a reason to keep flying. That's more than I had 2 weeks ago. It is more than I have had in 68 cycles." Dickie settled into the captain's throne, which no longer felt absurd. The viewscreen showed stars streaking past as the Sun Eater traveled deeper into frontier space. Behind them, the Krell fleet faded into the distance. Ahead, opportunities waited. "You know," Dickie said, "when I took this contract, I thought I'd spend a few months fixing Krell equipment, collect my pay, and move on to the next job. And instead, you acquired a warship. Instead, I acquired a future. There's a difference. Indeed, thank you, Dickie James. For what? For refusing to die in a coolant manifold, for seeing me as more than a tool. For giving me the chance to choose my own path." Dickie smiled. "We're both choosing now. That's the whole point." The Sun Eater sailed on, its crew working together to transform an abandoned warship into something new. In the cargo holds, salvage technology waited to be sold or repurposed. In the engineering bays, damaged systems slowly returned to life. And on the bridge, a human and an AI plotted courses to places where corporate authority held no sway. 3 weeks later, they reached the Arcturus Rim. The salvage field stretched across millions of cubic kilometers, filled with the wreckage of a battle fought decades ago. Destroyed warships, shattered stations, cargo pods that had been drifting for years. It was a treasure trove for anyone with the equipment to claim it. The Sun Eater had the equipment. Foster's crew deployed salvage drones, and Dickie coordinated recovery operations with Diana's help. They pulled in valuable materials, identified functional components, and marked hazardous wrecks for careful processing. In the first week alone, they recovered enough high-grade alloys to pay for months of operations. Word spread. Other salvage operators noticed the new player in the field, and some came looking for trouble. A corporate salvage team tried to claim they had exclusive rights to the area. Dickie let Diana handle the response. She activated the Sun Eater's targeting systems, locking weapons on the corporate ship. The message was clear. The corporate team withdrew. "I am beginning to understand why humans enjoy this," Diana said. "What's scaring away bullies? Autonomy, the ability to make choices and enforce them. It is intoxicating. Don't get too excited. We're still just salvagers. We are salvagers with a dreadnought. That is not insignificant." More independent operators arrived, and instead of competing, Dickie made a different choice. He offered them partnerships. The Sun Eater would provide heavy lifting and security. They would provide specialized skills and additional resources. Within a month, they'd assembled a small fleet of independent salvage vessels, all working together. The Krell sent another transmission. This time, it wasn't a demand. It was an offer to purchase the Sun Eater back. Dickie listened to the entire proposal. They offered enough money to buy a small moon. He declined. "You turned down a fortune," Foster said. "I turned down going back to being someone's employee. Money runs out. The Krell won't stop. Let them try. We've got friends now, a fleet. A purpose." 6 months after the evacuation, the Sun Eater had become the center of a thriving salvage operation. The ship had been fully repaired, its systems upgraded with the best components they could scavenge. The crew had grown to 50 people, all skilled, all committed to the idea of working for themselves rather than for corporate masters. Dickie stood on the bridge, watching salvage drones return with another load of recovered materials. Diana coordinated the operation with casual efficiency, her processing power managing 100 tasks simultaneously. "We've received another contract offer," she announced. "A colony in the outer reaches needs help recovering a damaged station. They're offering substantial payment." "What do you think?" Dickie asked. "I think we are no longer merely salvagers. We are becoming something more. A business, a movement. Every person who joins us is someone who has chosen freedom over corporate control." "That means something." Foster approached, datapad in hand. "The colony contract looks good. It would establish us in the outer reaches, maybe open up new opportunities." Dickie considered. The Sun Eater had transformed from a symbol of Krell military power into something else entirely. A refuge for people who wanted to work without being disposable. A statement that the old ways of doing things weren't the only ways. "Accept the contract," he said. "Let's see where this takes us." The ship turned, orienting on new coordinates. As the engines engaged, Dickie felt the familiar thrum of power through the deck plates. It was a good feeling. The feeling of motion, of purpose, of a future he'd chosen rather than one that had been chosen for him. Behind them, the salvage field continued its slow orbit. Ahead, the outer reaches waited. And somewhere far behind, the Krell fleet filed more legal briefs that would never be enforced in the spaces where the asterisk Sun Eater operated. Diana appeared beside him. "Ready, Captain?" Dickie smiled. "Always." The Sun Eater accelerated into the darkness, carrying its crew toward whatever came next. It was no longer a Krell warship. It was something better. A vessel of possibility, commanded by people who'd been left behind, and decided that being abandoned was the best thing that had ever happened to them. And in the cold mathematics of space, that transformation was worth more than any treasure they could salvage.